that stuff when you first started
He did have
going
that
out?
big beard. You saw that picture?
Yes.
He looked like a Viking who'd been lost at sea.
He
for
does.
months, right?
He really does.
Yeah, well, we had a strange first date because our first date was really at the end of a class that we were in together. And I was walking out, and he followed me out and started talking to me. And it was at the end of the semester. It was 1971, and I had to go register for the classes for next year at law school. So I was standing in line. He was talking to me, and I got up, and I said, well, you going to register too? And he goes, yeah, yeah. And so we got up to the registrar's desk, and this really nice woman said, well, Bill, you were just here. And he goes, no, don't say that. So, so I registered, and then he said, well, you want to go, you know, get something to drink? And so we went for a walk, and we started walking, and we walked, and we walked, I mean, literally for an hour.
Did he kiss you?
Now, just a minute. That was later.
Oh, it was later.
Yes, we're still in the afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you know, we just started a conversation that's gone on for, you know, gosh, 37 years now.
Oh, wow. And who said I love you first?
He did.
He did. Yeah. Nice. Nice.
But then, you know, he asked me to marry him.
A couple of times.
A couple of times. He asked me to marry him the first time. It was so romantic. We were in the Lake Country in England, and we had been hiking, and we ended up in, you know, it was summertime, and so the sun was slowly setting, so he asked me to marry him, and I said, oh, you know, I really have to think about this. He said, well, you know, I don't have to think about it. And I said, well, I have to think about it. So I thought about it, and then like a month later he asked me again. I said, I'm still thinking. So, you know, I had to really think. I mean, it was so overwhelming. And I knew he loved me, and I loved him, and he knew that I loved him, and vice versa. And then finally, in 1975, I said to him in October, I said, well, let's hurry up and do it. So we got married in a week.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I called my parents, and I said, we're getting married next Saturday. I called my best friends, and we had a small wedding, and then we had a big reception. And it was great. And
it was great.
You showed the picture earlier on our wedding day.
Really beautiful. Well, Senator Clinton recently appeared on Meet the Press. Check out what she said.
Doris Kearns Goodwin said, what's the biggest public adversity a person has ever faced? What's yours?
Well, I think we all know that. We lived through it, didn't we? And it's something that was very painful and very hurtful.
Well, we all know what we're talking about there. No need to really explain what that is. How did you persevere during the darkest moment in your life?
Well, because I had tremendous faith, number one, I really had to dig down deep and think hard about what was right for me, what was right for my family. And I never doubted Bill's love for me, ever. And I never doubted my faith and my commitment to our daughter and our extended family. But I had to decide what I had to do. And I think it's so important to be able to hear yourself at a moment when it's hard. It might be a family issue, it might be a job issue. There's so many times when you really have to listen to yourself.
Were you embarrassed?
You know? Well, I
would be embarrassed.
Well, sure. I mean, all of that. But I also, I was just praying so hard and thinking so hard about what's right to do that I couldn't let anything else interfere with that. You know, the momentary feelings, you know, you're mad, you're really upset, you're disappointed, all of that goes through your mind. But I have found you really shouldn't make decisions in the heat of those moments. You have to think about it.
Do women come up to you and ask for advice? My husband, Senator Clinton, my husband stepped out on me, and I'm going through hell right now. What do I do? Have they done that?
Yes,
what do you
all
say?
the time.
What do you say?
I say you have to be true to yourself. You know, no one story is the same as any other story. I don't know your reality. I can't possibly substitute my judgment for yours. But what I can tell you is you must be true to yourself. You have to do what is right for you.
That's a good
And that may not be what anybody else does.
But it's right for you. We'll be right back. Okay. I'm a lesbian, and my partner of 20 years is sick. She can't afford her medical expenses, and because we are not legally married, my policy won't cover her. How can you help us?
I believe that if you are in a committed relationship, you ought to be able to have your benefits go to that person or to anyone else. Suppose you are living with your brother and you want him to have your benefits, he wants you to have your benefits. Suppose you're taking care of and living with your mother. If you're in a committed relationship, no matter what that relationship is.
Woman, man, doesn't
That's
matter.
right. I believe that these benefits are yours, and you ought to be able to give them and pass them on to whomever you choose. Also, as we begin to see different states making these decisions, civil unions, domestic partnerships, marriage, the federal government ought to make all of the benefits through Social Security and other programs available to any legally recognized relationship. And I intend to try to do that.
We'll be right back.
Rights Act, when we got the Voting Rights Act, we were able to say to the country, it is now illegal to discriminate against people. It's not only wrong, it's not only immoral, it is illegal. So we're going to stop you. And I think that it's that partnership that we have to have.
You know,
in politics.
one thing that I was talking about with my crew here, all the producers, before we started the show today, was how every little tiny word that politicians say is so dissected and just torn apart, and I would be so scared to say anything. I'd come out and say, vote for me, y'all. I love you. You know what I'm like? It's how does that feel? That everything that comes out is like it must be scary sometimes to even speak.
Well, it is to be you know to be frank about it. It is because you know that every word is being measured and pulled out of context or misinterpreted. So you do have to be very, very careful. And then, of course, people say, well, you're way too careful. And so you always have to try to strike the right balance.
Or then they say, you're bland, you don't have a personality,
Yes.
or bored, they said that type of stuff. But then, okay, he might get a little something, and then they're like, oh, my God, it's too much. So it's scary.
It
it's
is.
terrifying.
Well, and you just have to do the best you can. And whenever you, have somebody say something you don't think you said and you don't think is true, then you clarify it and you correct it. But we say so many words when we're running for office. I mean, it's a torrent of words. We're always talking about something. And you do have to be, conscious of what it is. But at the same time, you also want people to understand you, to get a feeling of who you are. So it's a balance you have to strike.
I remember reading an article. I was on vacation in Mexico recently, and I was reading the New York Times every single day. And it had an article about the politicians right now that are campaigning, and when you guys get tired, the things that you say, but the mess-ups that you say. Do you sometimes go, what did I say?
That's right, exactly.
Does that happen when you're
tired?
tired?
Well, how could it not happen? You're running basically on fumes. You've had very little sleep. You've talked constantly, and it never ends. And all of a sudden you go, whoa, what was that about?
Was that?
Yeah, where did that come from?
Well, one of the goals of the Tyra Show for me is for young people to be involved in the voting process. I voted when I was 18 years old here in New York City during Fashion Week, actually.
Good.
Long time ago. What do you say to those young voters that don't really feel like they matter or they count?
This election, like every election, is about the future. This one more than probably any we've had in a long time. And young people have so much more at stake than the rest of us because your whole lives are ahead of you. And if we don't get a president who's going to fix a lot of what's been going on, restore our leadership and our moral authority in the world, get the economy working for everybody so people don't feel like they're just, running in place or falling backwards, and reform the government, and then really make us believe in ourselves again, have that optimism and determination. We are a great and good nation. We want to prove it to ourselves in the world. And young people have such an incredible opportunity in this election to get involved and, to help us chart this new future that is there waiting. Change is going to happen whether we want it or not. It's just whether we'll have the right change, the positive change, whether we'll bring people together to solve our problems. And I know that the young people that I come in contact with, they are so passionate about global warming, about Darfur, about college affordability. They're passionate, they care, they're committed, but if they don't vote, then those won't be the priorities.
Yeah, exactly. Vote, people. Get out and vote.